Welcome back to another episode of Skip to the Point. In this episode, I sit down with Sam Griffard. Sam is an accomplished sales leader and is also a bit of a sales nerd like myself. This episode is an important reminder to all of us AEs that although we're out of SDR land, working on top of funnel stuff is crucial to our success. In this episode, we talk about how to get better at cold calls, how to excel in talking about future state in our discovery calls, and how we can bridge gaps to make important connections with our prospects. I'm excited for this episode, and with that, let's skip to the point. Sam, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Alex, thanks for having me.
I'm a new AE, as you know, at a different company, and one thing I'm really struggling with right now is cold calls. So I'm really excited for this episode because I know you're really good at those. So with that, what advice do you have for me?
Where do we start? Okay, this is where I want everybody to go. Imagine this. You're back at university. You're in the library, and you notice somebody across the library sitting there. They've got their laptop, they got books, they got earbuds in, they're scribbling on papers, they're typing on their computer, and you're attracted to them. And so you walk over, and you kind of get their attention, and they pull an earbud out, and you go, "Hey, how's it going?" They go, "Good. Can I help you with something?" And you say, "Can I have 30 seconds to tell you why I came over?" Or you say something like, "Did I catch you at a bad time?" And they go, "Yeah, I've got a lot of work going on right now." Or you try something of that nature. Or you just say, "How's it going?" "Good." And that awkward silent pause and
Why are we here?
why are we here? Why are you talking to me? And you go, "Well, I noticed you from across the way. Thought I'd come over and introduce myself. I'm a really cool person, and you seem cool too, dedicated to your work, obviously, and I like what I see, and I was just wondering if maybe you'd be open to the idea of getting married this term, or maybe later this year." How does that sound?
They're like, what?
Does
No.
that just sound absolutely cringy, right? The person's like, "Go away. Leave me alone. Don't ever talk to me again." Right?
I'm calling the cops. Yeah.
I'm calling security. You're getting kicked off campus, right? So why then do salespeople do the same thing with their cold calls? We call somebody up and we say, "Hey, I'm Sam from such and such company, and we're pretty cool. We do a lot of cool things, and you seem like a cool person. And I'm wondering if, you are in the market for an X solution, and if you'd be open to buying that solution this year, because I really want to know what timing I can go back to leadership with. Oh, and do you have budget set aside for something like this? Because their leadership's going to ask me about that too. And then I know I called you, but is there somebody else on your team, or do you have the authority to say, yes, I can do this year?" Why do we do that? We get the exact same reactions, right? We get the exact same reactions. Hello? Can I help you with something? Are you busy right now? Yes, I am busy right now.
Right. Not to mention everyone's used, every person answering a phone from someone that they don't know they know kind of the pattern of a telemarketer or a salesperson. Yeah. They're saying, "Okay, well, I'm waiting for you to be done with this spiel that it makes no sense to me."
Yes. They're waiting for you to be done. They're like, "Okay, this is a salesperson. How do I get off the phone as quickly as possible?" Right? Maybe I just click. I'm just going to hang up right away. I don't even want to mess with anything. But how do I get off as quickly as possible? So let's skip ahead. Here's what I think you should do. Based on what I did many years ago as an SDR and what I've coached my teams at multiple organizations, either in my full-time positions, leading global teams, or in my consulting, here's what I think you should do. You call somebody up, you are empathetic, you know you're a disruption. You know you're calling out of the blue, then address it. Call it out. So when I open a cold call, or when one of my reps opens a cold call, it's, "Hey, so-and-so, Sam Griffard over at company. I know I'm calling you out of the blue, or I know I'm a disruption." And then you get to the point in terms of they want to get off the phone as quickly as possible. And most SDRs get paid to set up meetings. They don't get paid to have conversations. And so I'm going to give them what they want. They want to get off the phone as quickly as possible, and I want a meeting. So I say, hey, this is what we do. We work with other companies such as such and such. And I was wondering if we might be able to find some time later this week or maybe even next week to have a quick conversation about X. Would you be opposed to having a conversation? Would you be opposed to a casual intro? Would you be opposed to a chat? And so I'm giving them an opportunity to get off the phone as quickly as possible because that's what they want. But I'm also giving them opportunity to opt in to what I want. I want that meeting. I want to have that conversation. Now, here's the funny thing. Most of the time, best case scenario, the person goes, I know who you guys are. I've maybe heard a voicemail from you or seen an email from you, or I got your LinkedIn connection request or whatever it was before you finally got a hold of me on the phone. Sure, yeah, let's find some time on the calendar. Let's get together. Great. You're off the phone within 60 seconds. You got the meeting. They're happy because you didn't disrupt more than a minute of their day. The other likely scenario is when they go, sorry, who are you? What would this meeting be about? And the difference now is they have invited you to tell them why you're calling. Versus a lot of sales reps go into a cold call and they pitch slap somebody. Person picks up the phone and they just start pitching them immediately. And it's abrasive, it's not comfortable. They're like, whoa, slow down, click, right? Instead, now they're asking for it. They're inviting you to tell them why you called.
Right. I feel like when that happens, when people say, okay, well, what's this regarding? What's this about? In my mind, I don't know if anyone else deals with this, I kind of freak out because I don't want to waste their time. They're like, kind of, I don't really care what you're doing. Why are you calling me? And so how do I approach it where I'm saying, yeah, real quick, this is what we do. And in a way that's enticing.
Okay, so what I try to do is I try to focus on what we've done with other people just like them. I want them to be able to see themselves in this scenario. So what I do is I describe very quickly on a cold call the current state that we're seeing in the market with their persona, with their department, with whatever issue that we're solving. Say, here's what we're seeing. We're seeing people like you facing A, B, and C. We work with organizations such as these. They were facing the exact same issues. Does that sound familiar to you? And I'm giving them information that they could basically say, okay, this guy knows my day-to-day, and yet I've never talked to him before. He obviously does know what I'm going through. He obviously is talking to my peers, is familiar with this space, but I'm giving them opportunity to say, yeah, that sounds familiar. I can swear to you, I've rarely ever had anybody say, nope, doesn't sound familiar. And I think the 1 or 2 or 3 times that it's happened, it was likely the person just being difficult. No matter what you say, no matter what you do, they're just going to, nope.
They won't talk to you. Yeah.
They don't want to talk to you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Even though you hit them right between the eyes, it was a bullseye, they're not going to admit to it. But what you're doing is you're subtly implying to them that you are an expert that can be trusted, that you do know what you're talking about. So you describe that current state. This is what we're seeing. You're maybe using tools like A or B. You're doing manual processes such as this, or you're running into issues with this, and so you're describing their current state. Once they confirm, they're like, yeah, that sounds familiar. And that's usually the response. And I'm okay with that. I'm not going into deep discovery in a cold call. I'm okay to just get them to start to trust me and to allow me the next 10 to 15 seconds of the conversation. I'm hoping for 5 seconds here, 10 seconds here, another 10 seconds if they don't commit to a meeting right away. Right.
Let's
okay, so that sounds familiar?
Saying like, give you 10 more seconds, give you 5 more seconds. And then, yeah. Okay, I love that.
Yep. Okay, so once we've established, they're like, yes, that sounds familiar. Okay, great. Then what we've seen or what we've done with your peers in that situation is we took them from that current state to this future state. They're no longer dealing with these systems and the limitations. They don't have to deal with this. It doesn't take them this long. Doesn't take multiple people to accomplish a job. All the before and after type effects, current state versus a future state. Best case scenario, the person says, how? How did you get from point A to point B? And that's when I slow down and I physically lean in, even though I'm on a phone. And I go, Alex, let me show you. Let's pull up our calendars and let's find a time to actually show you. Now, sometimes they'll be like, okay, tell me more. Now, again, they're inviting you to give them more information. But as a cold call, I'm going to go, it sounds like you're interested. Like I said at the beginning, I didn't want to take any of your time today. Can we find a time later this week or even next week to continue the conversation? I know I'm a disruption to your day. So I'm constantly going back to my original call to action. Hey, I know I'm calling you out of the blue. I don't want to take any of your time today. When can we get together for that conversation?
Okay. So if you were to break it down, it would say, like, state the obvious. I'm interrupting your day. Talk about how other people, your peers and their peers in the industry, and then, but ultimately it's pain, leading with pain, their pain.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. What are the limitations of your current state, or the areas where it's uncomfortable, annoying?
Do you find it's hard when they don't know us that are calling? Do you find it's hard for people to open up about their pain? Or how do you kind of handle that?
Yes. We've all been in those scenarios where the person we talk to is open to talking on a cold call. And they're asking you questions, and you're able to ask them questions. And you'll be able to tell, right? When they're asking you questions, they're inviting you to stay on the phone longer. You can get a little bit more time with them. So it's almost like a miniature disco, right? So I don't want to be that salesperson that goes in and starts asking questions at the very beginning, whether it's a cold call or a discovery call. Most people are going to have their guard up. They know you're a salesperson. It is their job to do whatever it is that you are trying to find pain with. So if you say, hey, how bad is it? How much does it hurt? What's wrong? What are your challenges? What are your issues? They're admitting that there's some limitation to what they're able to do in their job. They're having to admit, like, I'm not perfect. And us as humans, we don't like to admit that. So
there's people we don't know.
especially to people you don't know, and especially to a salesperson you don't know. Because you know that salesperson is taking everything and holding on to it, and they're going to use it against you, right? So instead, I go in with, here's what we see. I want to earn their trust. I want them to know that I know their space, that I'm not just a transactional person searching for a needle in a haystack for somebody who perfect timing and says, yes, this sounds amazing, let's go. I want them to trust me as I describe what they're going through. So that's what I'll do. Discovery. Now, if I can, I'll do it in a disco if they're giving me more time. But I'll go, okay, here's what we're seeing. Starting a disco call. Hey, Alex, thanks for joining me today. Appreciate you taking the time. I'm going to ask maybe, is there any particular reason why you took the call today, or was my SDR just very persistent? And you're like, the only way I'm ever going to stop hearing from Sam Griffard is if I take a meeting with his account executive. Been there. That's something. Or they're going to say, oh, I've heard about you guys, or I've seen you guys at conferences, or I saw a webinar, or whatever it is that piqued their interest, was intriguing at some level. Okay, great. That's cool with me. I'm okay with that. Now, golden scenario, the person says, we've been researching this. We know you're one of the top players in this market, and we are in the market. We got to get something as soon as possible. But that's, again, needle in the haystack. So they're going to say, hey, yeah, I was intrigued. I was interested. Okay, cool. So I want to start out with our disco call with that. Then I want to move on to kind of setting agenda. I want to talk to you about what we're seeing in the market, and then I can tell you what we're doing with your peers. And then if it makes sense, we can move forward. If not, no hard feelings.
Right.
So this is what we're seeing. And I'll do bite-sized pieces in a disco call, very similar to the way I do it in a cold call, where I'm looking for 5 seconds to 10 seconds to 15 seconds on a cold call. I may be looking for 60 seconds or 90 seconds on a discovery call. So I'm breaking up my even mapping out their current state or what we're seeing in the market into little tiny bite-sized pieces. So this is what we're seeing in the market. The people that we're talking to are using these types of systems. That's like first check, and then I go, does that sound familiar? Are you guys familiar with any of those systems? Have you used any of those before? And I'm not asking specifically. I'm not asking what system do you use. Just, does that sound familiar? And sometimes they'll say, yeah, I'm using one of those systems, or I'm using that specific system, or they'll just say, yeah, that sounds familiar. Okay, cool. So then the people who are using those types of systems, this is what we see that they're running into. You know, something that they're supposed to accomplish at year end or quarter end is taking them 5 days. And they've got teams of 8 people working on this one thing, and the next team is waiting on this team to finish their piece before they get handed off to them, and then it takes them a few days. Does that sound familiar? Is that, you know, something you maybe faced at your current role or a previous company? And again, bite-sized pieces. Each time I'm earning a little bit of trust, I'm earning a little bit more time and attention from them, and I'm proving that I know the market inside and out. And then I'll move on to the next piece, and the next piece, and the next piece. Now, generally, I'm looking for 3 or 4 things where they're like, yeah, that sounds familiar. And I found that as you start to get kind of deeper into that mapping of their current state, they start to open up more. The trust is there. They finally start to be a little bit less guarded.
I wonder why that is. Maybe is it because you're kind of leading with knowledge of, hey, this is what I see in the industry, because I talk to people like you all the time.
Yes. And people love to share their opinion, what they're proud of. They love to share their accomplishments, and everybody thinks they're unique. And so they'll say, oh yeah, we used to deal with that type of stuff. Okay, tell me more. What do you mean you used to deal with that type of stuff? Well, let me tell you how I fixed that thing, right? Let me tell you how we're different from all of our peers. And then they're starting to get into their current state that's specific to their organization. Sometimes they will just divulge, yep, you just described my life. Yes, and it's annoying, and I hate it, and I miss my kids' soccer games because of it, or whatever, right? Now, I'm not going to pounce on them. I'm not going to hear something where there's pain, and I'm not going to twist and dig even deeper. I'm just going to take that, I'm going to put it in my back pocket. That might be contrary to some. Some might be like, let's pounce on that. Let's twist it. Let's make it hurt even worse. Let's dig into that. Let's find more pain within the pain. But I'm just going to hold on to it. I will not dig into their pain. I'm just going to hold on to it. I'm put it in my back pocket and I'm going to save it for later. Because I want to use it when I'm going through the future state. Because I want to be able to say, I heard you say this, and here's the direct opposite. That's your current state. Here's what it could be instead. So I'm going to save it for later. So I'm going through this process of just mapping out their current state and asking confirming questions. And if they're divulging information, then I'm asking for a little bit more, but I'm not just stopping and focusing on that and digging deeper. I'm just getting a little bit more, and then we're moving on. And then once we've kind of established, okay, this is your current state. Does that all sound familiar? Is there anything else that you've seen or experienced? And maybe they'll divulge a little bit more. Maybe they'll just be like, no, that sounds familiar. Okay, now it's time for us to shift gears. So this is what we're seeing. That's what was going on with X, Y, and Z companies specifically. And maybe you know people over at that organization. You maybe met them at a conference or something like that. And if I can, maybe I'm finding something in my research where they know a person at one of our clients. Best case scenario, if not, no big deal. I'm still using the story from one of their peers. This person at X organization, same exact thing that we're talking about right now. That was their life. Or if they divulged information to me, I'm now saying what you described, they were going through the exact same thing. And I've got a handful of scenarios that I can say, okay, this one sounds more like them than maybe this one, so I'm going to use this one this time. Then I'm going into, okay, so like you said, you're facing these types of things, you're dealing with these types of things, we're seeing this in the market. Here's the reverse. Here's the after effect. We're able to do these types of things, and what took them days or multiple systems or a team waiting on another team, whatever issue I was able to discover or get them to confirm of what we're seeing in the market, here's the after. Now it takes 10 minutes. Now it takes one person. Now it's all in one system. Not only do you get that, but you also get additional layers of reporting or functionality or whatever it may be. But again, I'm doing it in bite-sized pieces that almost mirror each piece from the current state. So current systems, here's the new system. It took you this long, now it takes this long. We talked about this topic, now we're covering the after effect of that topic.
So a good discovery call is past, present, and future state. If you get so it's almost like levels. It's like the level 1 is they're talking about the past, or we're kind of leading with that. Once they start talking about the present, you're like, all right, this is great. And then once you get to the future state, that's how you know you had a good discovery call?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. So once you go through the future state, then you pause and you be quiet. And I know that's really hard for a lot of salespeople. You just be quiet. Just let them soak it in. And hopefully you've got video on, or maybe you're meeting a person in, face to face. You can see, are the wheels turning? Are they thinking about it? Just let them simmer and then allow them the space to speak up. And they'll divulge more information, or they'll go, it's interesting. And like, for me on a discovery call, crazy as it sounds, that's good enough. I am not trying to close a deal on the discovery call. Now, some organizations might be trying to close a deal on the discovery call, and so the next steps are a bit different. But for me, then I'm going to go, what kind of questions do you have? And then they're going to ask their questions.
Right. Okay. So this is continuously thinking about it as a first date. Like, once you get to future state, you're not saying, and will you marry me?
Yes.
You're saying, so let's if this makes sense, we can have a second date.
Yes. You go up to that person in the library. You say, hey, I know it looks like you're studying, or you maybe even taking a quiz right now. I noticed you. If you're here 2 days from now, would it be okay if I came and sat and we chatted and got to know each other a bit? Or would you be open to getting a drink or lunch or something later this week? Something chill, right? Completely no. I just want to get to know you more. Maybe tell you a little bit about myself. Same scenario. Little tiny pieces, first date, second date, so on and so on. So I'm asking, do you have any questions? Okay, they ask a question. What other questions do you have? I'm not only trying to see if they understood everything I just gave them, I'm trying to see if there's anything else that what I didn't connect the dots for them, and now they're trying to connect the dots themselves with their questions.
And I want to pause here because I think it's so important to phrase that as an open-ended question.
Yes.
Do you have any questions? Because people are inclined to say no. Yeah. So if you say, what questions do you have?
Yes.
They're like, what questions do I have? So I love that. I wanted to kind of hold on that because that's a good point.
Yep. They ask their question, you go, what else? What other questions do you have? You just ask it again and again and again. Not only are you going to find out if it's connecting the dots for them, if they need more information, they didn't quite understand, they want to go a little bit deeper into something. The questions they ask will often shine a light on what's important to them as well. Keep that in your back pocket. That's helping you to be able to form a custom demo in the future, right? Everything you're keeping in your back pocket is so you can customize the demo in the future. You're also going to get objections. The questions that they ask are actually objections in the form of a question. So the questions they're asking are really just like, I don't know about this thing. I don't feel comfortable with this, without them actually saying, I don't feel comfortable with this. So you're able to address objections in the first get-go, right? Right in that first disco, you can handle those objections. Once I've gotten to the point where I said, what else? What other questions do you have? And they're like, no, really, I don't have any others. Okay, do you mind if I ask a couple questions myself? I'm not going to start my disco call with questions, which most salespeople do, right? I'm going to go through the interrogation. I'm going to ask you 21 questions at the beginning of the call. Now, all throughout the call, I have been asking them questions. I've been asking them for confirmation. I'm asking for clarification or maybe something a little bit more on what they said if they're divulging information. They've asked their questions. Now it's my turn. I'm hoping by this point, I've now earned the right to ask them questions. Maybe even questions that would be a little uncomfortable, especially at the beginning of the first time you're ever talking to this person, right? So I've earned their trust. I've earned their respect. They can tell I'm not a salesperson that's going to pounce all over them. I've now earned the right to ask those questions. I'm going to ask those questions. I'm going to get a little bit deeper on maybe some specific topics, or if they haven't divulged information, I'm going to say, can you tell me what that's like for you today? And then you finally get to the point and say, okay, based on this conversation and these things that I'm keeping in my back pocket, A, B, C, D, whatever I was able to gather, I think it would make sense for us to maybe show you a demo. Would that be fair? Allow them to opt into the demo. I'm also using just common sense language, like, I think it would make sense, versus I want to show you a demo. I think you need to see a demo. I just think it would make sense.
Yeah, just to continue the conversation. Not saying you need to buy this. I think
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not asking questions that have anything to do with budget, timing. I am still just trying to see if there is any kind of possibility where they recognize maybe my current state isn't as good as I thought it was. Or I've been in so many scenarios, so many different companies I've worked with, where the person goes, I had no idea this even existed, or that was even a possibility. So I just want to be able to take that person from that intrigue to openness to the next level and see if I can show them some very custom future state scenarios where we would actually be able to have an impact on them.
Yeah. Well, okay, this is great because this is going to help me because I have a discovery call in an hour, and this is going to really help me with phrasing it like this. Just to say, this is the first date. I'm not asking for marriage. I want to understand your problems and what's happening with your organization and how it's run. And then I think the ultimate goal of a good salesperson is to connect. That connection. It's the hardest thing. That bridge is the hardest thing in sales, I think.
Yeah.
My hot take.
Yeah, you do need to form a connection.
Yeah.
Humans buy from humans.
Right.
Now, you might be cheeky enough to be able to say, this is just our first date.
Right.
Or you might use business language and be like,
First
I just want to lay this out. This is just a conversation to us. We're just trying to see if there's any possibility of future alignment. I'm not even expecting anything from you. No expectations, right? If this call goes well, the natural next step would be to show you a demo. But again, no hard feelings if you say no or not at this time. I'm totally cool with that.
Love it. Love it. Sam, thank you so much for all this information. And I feel like this is going to be so helpful. It's helpful for me. I think it's going to be so helpful for listeners too. So thank you so much.